Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Live at 5. This is a stream that I do Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on my main channel. Sometimes I talk about the news. Sometimes I have guests like I've had on this week. We've had a couple great chats this week. We had Dr. Howard Asher on Tuesday. We had Alou from Liberty Block yesterday talking about the secession movement in New Hampshire. They're literally right now in the State House in Concord hearing testimony for the bill to put a question on the ballot in New Hampshire about whether or not we should secede from the union. I think I was watching some of it earlier. There was some really good and interesting and fascinating testimony. It is available on YouTube, so I would definitely recommend that people check that out. I had to, of course, split to do our stream today, but that's all right. We've got a lot of interesting topics on the table today. And while you guys are kind of filing into the chat, I see Grandma Nay's here, Jess T is here, Metastep is here. Let's get our orders of business taken care of. Well, for my locals members specifically, and I think everyone that I've seen chat in so far is actually in my locals community, which is awesome. I have a special treat for you guys. This was an impromptu decision. So you know that I have my book coming out. I'm shamelessly shilling it as much as I can, partially because I want the book to do well, but partially because I also think that I hate to pat myself on the back. I think it's a really good book. I had a great time writing it. It has lots of case studies, practical ideas about how to fight back against the woke in your life. It's called Actively Unwoke. You can get your copy on activelyunwoke.com. And because I would like some feedback from my most trusted advisors, i.e. the members of my locals community, and you can join my locals at kb.locals.com, today, after this stream, directly after this stream, what I want you guys to do is head over to locals, because I will be live streaming a live reading of the introduction to Actively Unwoke in locals directly after the stream today. So I have never read my book out loud. Even when I wrote my first book, I never did a live reading of it out loud. I'm actually really nervous about this. I find, my locals members know that we've been joking about like there's going to be an audio version of the book, but I'm not going to be the one reading it, so far as I understand. And I'm actually okay with that because I honestly can't think of anything more awkward than reading my own book. When they made the audiobook for my first book, a friend of mine did it. She did a wonderful job. She's an actress. She did a great job, and I was so happy to not have to read my own book. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to read you guys the introduction to my book after this stream today. And I'm actually really excited to hear what you guys think. So if you want a sneak preview of what is in the book and how I wrote it, head over to kb.locals.com. You don't actually have to be a paying member of locals. You can just be a free member of locals. So you can join for free at kb.locals.com. But of course, if you guys want to support the work I'm doing and help me out and unlock all of the features in the locals community, you can join as a supporter at kb.locals.com/support. It's in the ticker. That comes with a $5 a month donation. You can also do it for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. I do like to collect one-time gifts through my locals, even though there are PayPal options. I have crypto options in the description if that's what you would prefer. But I do like to do it through my locals simply because not only do you get to support the work I'm doing, which of course I greatly appreciate, but you also get to unlock the features of locals. So it's like you get a 2-for-1. So why not? Why not just make your one-time gifts through there? I find it to be easier and I think it's a little bit better. But if you want to come and hear the introduction to my book today, you do not have to be a paying member. Okay? Anyone can watch the live streams in locals, and so you don't have to be a paying member to do that. I can see from my audience that YouTube has decided not to send out notifications for my channel today. That's always nice. It's always nice when YouTube throws me under the bus. Do you guys know? Do you guys see? So for those of you who were watching the stream I did on Tuesday night, the impromptu stream where I was talking about Brandon's case. And by the way, guys, if you are wondering about Brandon Strzok from Walkaway Campaign being sentenced, it got delayed again to tomorrow morning. So at least it only got delayed one day now. So we're going to find out more information about that. But as I did the stream about Brandon the other day, And in the middle of the stream, one of my strongest and most consistent supporters super chatted in that YouTube unsubscribed them from my channel literally during the stream. And so that's what I get from YouTube. Oh, some of you got notifications. That's good. That's good. But if you think you're subscribed, just do a quick double check for me, because YouTube may have made that decision for you. All right, let's jump into it. Now, I want to start off with something that might be a little controversial. But I've been talking about Gettr an awful lot in these streams, and I've had questions about Gettr. You guys know I've had questions about Gettr because I have questions about how they're banning people, why are they taking down content? I wanted to see more guidelines around it. And so I think I've been pretty transparent about the questions I have for Gettr. Now, Elijah Schaffer has also done a wonderful job kind of looking into like, how is Gettr really a free speech platform? What are they doing with banning people like Nick Fuentes, things like that? And so yesterday he tweeted out, and this is the only reason you guys know, like I think Tim Pool is incredibly smart. I don't like watching him for reasons. I just like I don't like he and I go, we're like oil and water. We go like this, okay? Like we just have two very I actually think that Tim Pool and I have two very similar personalities, which is why we go like this. But I do actually think he's very smart. And so Elijah tweeted out that Jason Miller, who is the CEO of Gettr, was on Tim's show last night. And so this is one of the few episodes of this I've actually watched in like the last year or so. And I have to tell you, I'm seeing a lot of people today saying that, the CEO of Gettr was destroyed by Tim Pool. Like, I think the Quartering did a video about it. I've seen some of the libertarians talking about it. I've seen a lot of Tim Pool's fans talking about how Tim Pool destroyed the CEO of Gettr. I really disagree with that. I really disagree with that. And I think, Metastep, I agree with you. I do think that Tim did a good job. I think he asked the right questions. Now, I will admit, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched an awful lot of it. I watched significantly more than I do pretty much anytime I watch YouTube anything. So I did watch like a good chunk of it, and I wanted to show you guys my reaction. I said I retweeted Elijah, and I said I thought Jason Miller came off as incredibly competent and responsible. I've had similar concerns to Elijah, but honestly, I feel like he's been really thoughtful and open in his communication. Most impressive conservative CEO I've seen yet, honestly. And that is legitimate. You guys know that in the real world, I'm an organizational psychologist. I have worked with countless CEOs. I've worked with countless people in leadership positions, and I am an incredibly harsh judge of people in leadership positions. I think when you're taking on the role of a leader in an organization, you put extra responsibility onto yourself and you have an obligation to live up to those standards. You are literally dictating people's lives. People personally associate who they are, their identity, with the job that they have. And I think our jobs can have a tremendous impact on our stress level and our overall life experience. That's why I became an organizational psychologist, is I wanted to help build better leaders. I wanted to create better workplaces. One of my specialties when it comes to this sort of thing is I do manager training, not only at the executive level, but then also at the mid-level managers. I have a whole program around how to be a great manager, one that can not only get more productivity out of your team, but also help them feel good, help them feel valued and appreciated, and make the work experience a positive thing. So I've done this a lot. I am an extremely hard judge of CEOs. I thought Jason Miller did a really good job. I really do. I'm not blowing smoke. Listen, I still have concerns about Gettr. I have concerns about them not having clear policies about why they're blocking people and when. But Jason, to me, on Tim's show last night, came across as incredibly thoughtful and open. And you can see that he is actively involved in running the company. And the thing of it is Gettr is still an extremely new platform. It's extremely new. Twitter didn't have to tackle these questions this early on. Gettr is much further along in their thought process around this. And my position is this. I I understand the appeal of a free speech platform. I really do not want Gettr to become Gab. I hate logging on to Gab. I'm sorry for anyone that likes Gab because I do actually appreciate some of the functionality that Gab has. I was using Gab a lot after like January 6th last year. I was using it a lot. I like the functionality of it. I've supported Gab. I signed up for like a pro account on there, not because I had to, but because I wanted to actually support their efforts. I have a miserable experience on Gab because every time I go on Gab, my replies are filled with the most awful things that people have ever said to me ever. I've joked about like when that tweet of mine got taken out of context and Newsweek lied about me. I joked that, you know, like the actual legitimate neo-Nazis and anti-Semites on Gab call me a Jew as though that's an insult. They call me all manner of Jewish slur all the time. But people in the real world who claim to care about anti-Semitism but don't really call me an anti-Semite. So I've got the people on the neo-Nazis on Gab calling me all manner of Jewish slurs. Well, people who are not on like not in that world are calling me an anti-Semite. So I always found that to be an interesting contradiction. But like this all to say that I really don't want Gettr to become Gab. I really do not want Gettr to become Gab. I'm enjoying Gettr. I think Gettr has a much better energy than Twitter does. I'm enjoying the interactions I have on there. Twitter for me is like a war zone. Do you guys get that feeling at all? Twitter is like a war zone. People go onto Twitter with the specific intention of fighting. This is why I think I get actually perceived to be I think people perceive me to be much more angry than I am on Twitter simply because they've come to Twitter for the purpose of doing war, for the purpose of engaging in fights. And it's like, so if you are reading intention into every tweet you see as something that's going to be harsh or antagonistic or aggressive or any of these things, it can be very easy to assume that every single person on Twitter is angry when they're not. So that's the sense I have around Twitter right now. Gab isn't like that for me. Gab is light. Gab is fun. Like, I don't feel like I'm going into Mortal Kombat when I'm on Gab. I have a much smaller audience on Gab because I didn't port over my like followers like a lot of people did, and I'm actually really grateful for that because I feel like I'm rebuilding a much nicer audience. By the way, if you're on Gettr, please I think I said Gab, but I meant Gettr. If you're on Gettr, please follow me. My handle is just at Karlyn, Karlyn, so it's just my first name. But I feel like I'm rebuilding my audience in a nicer way, and it just feels so much better. I don't want Gettr to become Gab. I really don't. And so, while I understand that there needs to be additional language put around why they're banning people, and he seems to be struggling to answer some questions around why they're banning things or why they're taking down content, I also trust that he has good intentions with what he's doing, that he is being thoughtful about what he's doing, and that's what came across to me. And that he's open to new information and they're open to figuring this out. And what he did commit to was making sure guidelines were extremely clear. And I appreciated that. And I thought he came across as incredibly professional, incredibly knowledgeable about what was going on, more than any other conservative CEO that I have seen. Now, I am very critical of conservative social media platforms simply because I think a lot of them are shoddily put together and therefore doomed to fail. But Gitter's done a really good job. Gettr has had extremely fast growth. They have not crashed once. They're being open. The CEO is being open to have these conversations. To be fair, I think Torba, Gab CEO, is going on Elijah's show. Apparently, Jason Miller tweeted out that that Tim Pool also invited Gab CEO on, but Gab CEO is canceled, so I don't know what that means. But anyway, this is to say that, like, even though I've been critical of Gitter's banning policies, and even though I do have similar concerns to Elijah, and I feel like I've been pretty clear and transparent about those concerns, I was incredibly impressed with Jason Miller on Tim's show last night. I thought he did a really good job. I thought he looked like a really competent, capable CEO. I have absolute faith that he is in a good leadership position in that company. And I think what everyone needs to keep in mind is that Gettr is an incredibly new company. They're going to have challenges. They're not going to they're not going to just like roll out and be perfect. That's just not the way the world works. That's not how businesses work, particularly when you're building a business that is growing so quickly. And so I do think we need to allow them a little bit of grace because to me, it looks like Jason is operating the company in really good faith. And I found myself incredibly impressed by him. And again, I am not someone that when it comes to CEOs and people in leadership position, I am not an easy person to impress. It is literally my job to pick apart different aspects of leadership to tell CEOs and executives how to improve. And so I'm very good. I know immediately how to identify problems just because I've done it so much. So you start seeing patterns after a while of the things that are going to come up over and over and over again. I just didn't get that impression from him. The impression that I got is that the bobbles that they've had are related to the fact that they're still a new company. They still have some stuff to figure out, but I really appreciated how open he was being and how open to receiving new information. And to me, I perceived him as having a flexible mindset, which means that he's open to changing his mind, which is I think is a really good thing. That's one of the most important things that you want to have as a CEO. So I definitely want to encourage everyone to actually watch the interview. Watch it from start to finish. And don't judge by like if he says one thing you don't like, but he says an hour and a half worth of things that sound okay. Like that's actually a pretty good track record, guys. Running a company is hard. Running a company is especially hard when it is brand new and taking off and all of a sudden has millions of users that they didn't even have a couple weeks ago. And I just want everyone to extend a little bit of grace to the situation because, from my perspective, I think they're building a really strong platform. It is one of the most effective platforms that I've seen come out from conservatives so far. And even though I do believe absolutely we need to hold their feet to the fire to make sure they don't turn into Twitter, as much as I don't want Gettr to turn into Gab, I also don't want Gettr to turn into Twitter. So I'm hopeful. I thought it was a really good performance. Even though he may not be able to answer every question perfectly, I thought he did a very good job. And I don't say that type of endorsement lightly. And so I hope you'll watch the full breadth of what Jason had to say and really think about it for yourself. And I highly, highly encourage you guys, if you're on Twitter and hate it because it is a horrific cesspool of humanity, try Gettr out, man. It's so nice. It's so much better. It's kind of like I like my locals community is obviously my favorite community, but I'm really enjoying the interactions I'm having on Gettr. So that was my thought about that. I hope everyone checks it out. Now, do you guys remember for effed up news, I did a story about this column, California should abolish parenthood in the name of equity. And I clipped that portion of effed up news and I made it its own little clip that I put up on the channel the other day. And half of the comments were basically to the effect of, Karlyn, this can't be real. This is satire, right? This can't be real. This article is crazy. Go back and watch that clip that I posted the other day. This article is insane. And so this article is actually so insane that people didn't think the article was real. Well, guess what? Exactly the same article showed up in the San Francisco Chronicle. So the article that appeared on Yahoo that I covered, this was in the Ventura County Star, so like a local paper in Ventura County in California. It appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle just the other day. That's crazy. But just in case anyone thinks that this article is satire, I want to show you something that popped up on Twitter today. And it's this clip right here. This was posted by Amy Therese, and it says we have to break the idea that that kids belong with their parents or kids belong to their families. This is a clip from MSNBC. Now, of course, you guys know I have to switch browsers if we're going to hear sound. So let me just switch browsers real quick. I got it in another browser right over here. Share screen. Chrome tab. Okay. Okay. So let's actually listen to this clip. Let me know if you can't hear the sound. Of course, as always, we'll go back to the
We
beginning. I'm going to turn the sound up. All right. Check this out. MSNBC. This is on MSNBC.
have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
I'm sorry. What? Once we recognize that kids belong to the whole community and not just their households, we start making different investments. Let's just listen to that again, just in case you needed to hear it again to confirm that that article that I showed you was not satire at all. Let's just listen again.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
You guys see? Do you guys see what they're doing? That seems like a perfectly reasonable statement. Oh, it takes a village to raise everyone. But when you add in the notion, the subtle notion that we need to break free of this idea that kids belong to their parents, I'm sorry, what? That's exactly what that article was saying. It was just saying it in a little bit of a different way, but that was exactly what that article was saying. And I wanted to use that to leapfrog into the next thing we're going to take a look at, which is that they don't want you to know what your kids are learning. So Chris Rufo is doing a great job as always. He is absolutely, I mean, what a godsend Chris Rufo is. I thought about this a lot. Like, I really think that if Chris Rufo hadn't come along, I would be being much more proactive about doing the type of activism that he's doing, which would suck for me because I don't like doing media. And so like I have always been so grateful that Chris Rufo's doing what he's doing because that means that I feel like I don't have to. Like he's got that under control. I can kind of come and play around with you guys and we can do actively Unwoke and we can do more grassroots things that don't require me going on Fox News. So I've always been really grateful for him. But what he's doing right now is Chris Rufo is really focusing in on educational transparency. Educational transparency is the idea that teachers have to put their materials online so that parents can actually see what is being taught. And he's trying to get these bills introduced in states across the country. So he was working on banning quote unquote banning critical race theory last year. Now he's working on getting bills introduced around forcing teachers to put educational materials online to increase transparency. Next up is going to be cameras in classrooms. Next up, don't think I've forgotten about cameras in classrooms just because Matt Walsh tried to steal my idea. Don't think I've forgotten about it. I'm coming back to it, but it's just going to be like in May. May is the timeline for when I'm going to start pushing for that again. But in the meantime, Rufo's pushing for educational transparency and the media's catching up. Check out this article that appeared on NBC News today. They fought critical race theory. Now they're focusing on curriculum transparency. Conservative activists want schools to post lesson plans online. Oh no, not that! But free speech advocates warn such policies could lead to more censorship in K through 12 schools. So, guys, who in the chat, let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. Oh, it's nice and big. Who in the chat can tell me what is wrong with this line? Why would it, okay, if we say free speech advocates warn that educational transparency could lead to more censorship, what is wrong with that line? How good have you guys been paying attention to me? I like giving you guys pop quizzes sometimes to keep you on your toes. Who knows what is wrong with the line? Free speech advocates warn that educational transparency could lead to more censorship in K through 12 schools. Just T says it makes no sense to start. Why does it make no sense? Yes, meta step. Meta step for the win. Schools don't have free speech. More specifically, teachers, when teachers are teaching in public schools, they do not have free speech protections. This has already been ruled on by the Supreme Court, because when they are teaching in public schools, they are agents of the state. They are representative of the government. The greatest trick the teachers' unions ever played was convincing people that teachers are not government employees. Because they are government employees, they do not have free speech protections when they are in the classroom. Therefore, it is not censorship. If we are saying you can teach this, you can't teach that, that is not censorship, because they literally don't have free speech protections. If a teacher wanted to come in and teach the KKK is an amazing organization that everyone should join, would they be able to do that? No. Why? Because we can tell them, no, you're not teaching that stuff. So let's read this article. Let's see NBC's opinion. And guys, please make sure you mount that like button while we're reading the article. I really appreciate it. As state legislatures kick into gear this month, Republican governors and lawmakers who have fought to limit discussions of race in public schools are lining up to support a new aim: curriculum transparency. Lawmakers in at least 12 states have introduced legislation to require schools to post lists of all their teaching materials online, including books, articles, and videos. The governors of Arizona, Florida, and Iowa, who have previously raised concerns about how teachers discuss racism's impact on politics and society, called for curriculum transparency laws in speeches to their legislators this month. How are teachers and, frankly, the woke left going to explain to the public that they don't want you to see the materials that your kids are learning? How do we think that's going to go? I don't think that's going to go well. So after the governor's election in Virginia, what we saw is that the Democrats lost that governor's election in Virginia almost entirely because of critical race theory. That was the central issue. Parents did not like that critical race theory was being taught in schools. They wanted to have more say, not less, over what their children were learning. And as a result, the citizens of Virginia elected their first Republican governor in like 20 years or something like that, in like a crazy period of time, specifically over the issue of education. Now, you might think that the Democrats would learn a lesson from that, but no. They literally came out and said, and I covered it on this channel, that not only did they not learn a lesson, they were going to double down on teaching critical race theory in schools. And so now these curriculum transparency bills have come out, and now we literally are going to watch the woke left say, no, you don't get to know what your teachers are teaching in schools. How do they think that's going to play with parents? I don't think that's going to go well. Florida laws should provide parents with the right to review the curriculum used in their children's schools, said Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican, in his State of the State address last week. Some conservative activists say the effort, which has come under fire from Democrats, teachers, and civil liberties advocates, is a potent strategic move to expose and root out progressive ideas from schools. Yes. It's the next move in a fight over critical race theory, the academic concept typically taught in colleges. No. To examine how laws and institutions perpetuate racism, which some conservatives have used to describe ideas in books that they believe are too progressive or political for the classroom. Well, that's not exactly true. In a series of tweets this month, Christopher Rufo, a fellow at the conservative Manhattan Institute, who has been instrumental in drawing opposition to racial sensitivity training. Just a reminder for anyone who needs to hear this at NBC News, critical race theory is not racial sensitivity training. It is not that at all. Said shifting from pushing bans on critical race theory to pushing curriculum transparency bills is a rhetorically advantageous position that will bait the left into opposing transparency. Oh my God, I cannot believe that they literally published it. They literally published that Rufo was baiting them in an article where they're responding by taking the bait. Really think about that for a second. This entire article is literally taking the bait that Chris Rufo planted for them to take, and they are quoting Chris Rufo in the article saying that he's going to bait them into opposing transparency. How Not how much. How little self-awareness does NBC News have? Chris Rufo literally told NBC News that he was going to bait them, and NBC News took the bait and then wrote about the fact that Chris Rufo told them that he was going to bait them in the article. That's amazing. That is an accomplishment. The strategy here is to use a non-threatening liberal value transparency to force ideological actors to undergo public scrutiny. Yes, the push for curriculum transparency policy emerged after at least 7 conservative think tanks publicly called on legislators to enact such laws over the last year. 2 of them, the Goldwater Institute and the Manhattan Institute, have published model bills, policies, and resolutions for legislators and school boards to use as templates. The people are going to disagree on a lot of issues, said Matt, the Goldwater Institute's director of education policy. Transparency is something I think that at least allows for that conversation to know what is being taught. Everyone should be able to rally around the fact that we shouldn't be teaching something in secret. And you know what, to be honest with you, I feel like educational transparency is about the most reasonable way to approach this discussion. If critical race theory is really not being taught in K through 12 schools, then why wouldn't they want people to know that? If critical race theory is really just a dog whistle, just this fantasy that conservatives have created, then why wouldn't teachers want to show you that? Why wouldn't the Democrats want to show you that? Look, we're going to put all our education materials online. You can see everything that we're teaching, every book that we're using, every worksheet that we're giving, every lesson that we're teaching. You can see that there's no critical race theory. If they really weren't teaching critical race theory, they would use this as a victory lap. So why don't they want you to see what they're teaching? But teachers, their unions, and free speech advocates say the proposals would excessively scrutinize daily classroom work and would lead teachers to preemptively pull potentially contentious material to avoid drawing criticism. Don't we want teachers to do that? Don't we want teachers to not teach potentially contentious material? That seems like a win to me. Parents and legislators have already started campaigns to remove books dealing with race and genders, which they shouldn't be doing. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this every single time the banning of the books issue comes up. This was a stupid thing to start doing in the first place. The only way that I will get on board with banning books is if it depicts actual porn, which there are books in schools that show through comic book actual pornography. I am not okay with that at all. That should not be in schools. I want to be very clear about that. But if books don't have actual pornography in them, we should not be talking about banning them. I'm sorry. We should not be talking about banning them unless they are the most extreme depictions of actual porn. And this is what I told you guys would happen when Moms for Liberty started doing this crap. I was like, watch how the woke left is going to take this. We need to be strategic. I know I don't need to preach to you guys. It just continually boggles my mind how people don't think ahead to the consequences of their actions sometimes. It's important that we call this out, says John, the director of free expression and education at PEN America, a nonprofit group that promotes free speech. It's a shift towards more neutral sounding language, but it's something that is potentially just censorious. Public school teachers do not have free speech protections. Last year, 25 states considered legislation and 9 enacted laws to limit how schools can discuss race and gender as part of a campaign to block critical race theory. PEN America has said that these laws amount to an educational gag order, and it is no less concerned about curriculum transparency proposals, which Friedman said are designed to generate more outrage over lessons on race and gender in school. Why are they teaching about race and gender in school? Why are they teaching this? Why is there more of a focus on race and gender in school than there is on reading and writing and math and learning actual history? And I am not opposed to the teaching of slavery. I think we should teach that slavery happened. I think we should teach about the civil rights movement. I think we should teach about the monumental battles that Black people have overcome in this country. That is not the same thing as teaching race and gender in school. They're not the same thing. Friedman said that the proposals recall tactics conservative activists have used over the past several years to systematically pinpoint college professors and accuse them of a liberal bias. 95% of college professors donate money to the Democratic Party. Maybe it's not 95% specifically, but it is absolutely over 90%. And I think 95% is a good sporting guess. Someone can put the most recent number that's out in the chat if they want, but it is absolutely over 90% of college faculty members donate money to the Democratic Party. There is an absolute liberal bias in universities. We've covered this extensively. It's almost like it's trying to be replicated at a K through 12 level, and it's alarming. While most schools have insisted that they didn't teach critical race theory, they're lying. A new report by UCLA's Institute for Democracy, Education, and Access found that local efforts to restrict schools from teaching or using critical race theory emerged in at least 894 school districts. Dude, that's awesome. Look at this. They're saying this is a bad thing. That's awesome. Local efforts to restrict schools from teaching or using critical race theory emerged in at least 894 school districts, which enroll more than a third of all K through 12 students in this country. Oh, that's a white pill. That is a white pill right there. Oh my God, white pill. Hang on, I'm highlighting that. I'm coming back later for that for a screenshot. That is amazing. 1/3 of all K through 12 students in this country? Epic win. Epic win for everyone that is fought back on any level in your local school districts. That is awesome work, guys. Now, we still have the other 2/3 of the schools left to go, but that is incredible. Think about that for a second. I feel so good about this right now. That is like a single year's worth of effort. 1/3 of all K through 12 students in this country. Are you kidding me? That's awesome. That's really good. That makes me so happy. You guys think I'm never happy and I'm always critical of things. That makes me happy. Thank you, NBC News, for informing me of that statistic. The outrage over critical race theory has resulted in educators being ousted from their jobs. Oh no. Parents becoming suspicious of mental health initiatives and schools burning books or banning books by Black authors. Many curriculum transparency proponents point to a remark by Democrat Terry McAuliffe made in a Virginia gubernatorial debate in September where he said, "I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach." The comment by McAuliffe, who went on to lose the election in Virginia, is trending increasingly blue. Drew swift condemnation from conservatives and is widely seen as a boon for Republican candidates in the state. Republicans nationwide have vowed to keep Republicans nationwide have vowed to keep conversations around critical race theory at the center of their midterm election strategy, and they should. Republicans cannot get distracted. They cannot get distracted by this. They've got to keep the focus on education. If they get distracted by abortion or gay marriage or any of the like conservative, like shiny objects that they all or porn or any of those things, they are going to lose the fight. They have got to stay 100% focused on education. I really hope they do. We reject the notion that parents shouldn't have a say in what their kids are learning in schools, DeSantis said in a speech this week, appearing to refer to McAuliffe's comments. I think that this has further energized parents to say we're part of the process. So NBC is a little perturbed. Oh, look at my state. New Hampshire has indeed introduced an educational transparency bill in the state. We'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll testify at that committee hearing. We'll have to get Rufo to testify. Maybe I'll testify at that committee hearing. We'll see. I'll probably be a little less spicy than I was last time. Last time I was spicy. Last time I testified at a committee thing for the anti-CRT bill, I was purposefully a little bit spicy because I had already submitted them more like even keeled testimony. And so I was purposely a little bit spicy as an experiment. But maybe I'll be less spicy this time. Let's see. We've got New Hampshire, we've got Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, Colorado, Georgia, and South Carolina. North Carolina, interestingly enough, tried to do this last year and they failed. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So that's what's going on there. We're starting to switch the focus to educational transparency, which I think is going to be a really important fight. Now, that's not to say that people should stop paying attention to critical race theory, okay? Every single parent with children in public schools has got to pay attention to what your kids are learning. You've got to pay attention to their assignments. You've got to pay attention to their reading list. And actually, this is perfect timing because if you go to activelyunwoke.com and you go to live events, I've got a couple things that are going to really help you guys out because Actively Unwoke is more than a book for me. This is a mission. This is about rallying the troops. This is about getting together as community members to all fight back in the ways that we can fight back. I want to build a robust community of warriors who are going into their communities and fighting back in different ways. And we can come up with strategies. We can help support each other. This is going to be fun. I want to make fighting back against the woke fun. Something exciting because the woke suck all of our life out of us. They suck every bit of fun and joy out of life. One of the ways that you can tell if someone is woke, and this is true on the right or the left, because there are woke people on the right. There are even woke people in the anti-woke movement, which is a weird thing in and of itself. But there are woke people on the right and there are woke people on the left. And one of the key things that allows you to tell when someone is woke is they completely lose their sense of humor. They completely lose their joy in life. We're not going to do that. We're going to make fighting back against the woke fun, and we're going to be highly practical about it. So if you go to activelyunwoke.com and you go to the events page, which is activelyunwoke.com/events, I've got a couple webinars coming up that are free. They are completely free. One is going to be on February 1st with me, where I'm going to give a really simple, bare bones explanation of what critical race theory is and why it's bad. I'm going to show you some examples. If you are more advanced about critical race theory, this is probably not the webinar for you, but I bet you have friends and family that have questions. Please share the webinar with your friends and family that are just learning about this stuff. You want to introduce them to it. I'm not going to be YouTube Karlyn. I'm going to be more like corporate trainer Karlyn. It's going to be a nice even-keeled presentation that's just going to give the facts in a way that's easy to understand, that is easy to pick up on, show examples, stuff like that. So you can register for that right now. And then on February 11th, I have a webinar coming up with Nicole Solis, who is a mom and also a lawyer in Rhode Island who ended up getting sued by the teachers' unions because she wrote too many public records requests. And what Nicole is going to teach you guys is how to do public records requests. This is a really important thing. Until we get educational transparency bills passed in all 50 states, public records requests are the easiest way for us to find out what the schools are teaching. Nicole knows all the tricks. She's going to teach you exactly how to do it, what words that you want them looking for, where you want them looking, how to get the right information, how to figure out what the teachers are hiding from you. So these are some of the things we're going to be doing on activelyunwoke.com. Please register for those webinars right now. Both webinars are free. They're webinars because they're going to be private. I'm not going to stream them on YouTube because I want people to be able to ask questions in a private setting. I will be recording them, but I'm going to do it in a way that's going to protect people's identities and things like that. I don't want anyone to get in trouble for daring to come to one of these webinars. But they are free. Space is limited. And I'll tell you that my webinar is already 20% of the way full. Nicole's webinar is like this far off from being 20% of the way full. So if you want to sign up, you want to make sure you do that as soon as possible. Get it out there. I don't think these are going to be the only ones I do, but I just want to make sure that everyone who wants to be in it can get a spot. All right, moving on now. You guys know, speaking of the anti-CRT bill in New Hampshire, you guys know that my Rhino Republican governor has never been one of my favorite people Purely because when the Republicans, or more aptly, the Liberty Republicans in New Hampshire, tried to write a really good, really strong anti-CRT bill, Chris Sununu, Republican, threatened to veto that bill. And when Chris Sununu threatened to veto that bill, he sent everything into a flipping tailspin. And Chris Sununu did that because he was kissing the backsides of the Democrats. Everyone and their mother tried to reason with Chris Sununu. Chris Sununu literally had former judges from the New Hampshire Supreme Court try to explain to him that teachers do not have First Amendment protections. He wouldn't listen. And so I was screaming for months and months and months. I was like, Chris Sununu's a rhino, Chris Sununu's a rhino, Chris Sununu's a rhino. And because the Republicans at that time were begging him to run for Senate, the Republicans were completely rallying around Chris Sununu for Senate. Dan Crenshaw came to New Hampshire to do an event with him. Chris Sununu was included on all these conservative shows. He was on Sean Hannity as like New Hampshire's governor because they were trying to set him up to get more national name recognition for when he ran for Senate. Trump even was trying to get Chris Sununu to run for Senate. And I was screaming the whole time. I was like, Chris Sununu's a rhino. This is stupid. This is a stupid idea. Well, guess what? Chris Sununu decided not to run for Senate. Now, I have thoughts about why he decided not to run for Senate. My thoughts are that he knew he was going to lose because Chris Sununu really pissed off a lot of Republicans in New Hampshire. Not just for the anti-CRT thing. In fact, the anti-CRT thing is not even the main reason why Chris Sununu pissed them off. He pissed them off because of his handling of COVID in the state. So I don't think, like, the Republican establishment convinced themselves that Chris Sununu was like the great white hope to beat Maggie Hassan for Senate in New Hampshire. I don't think Chris Sununu was going to win. And I think Chris Sununu knew he wasn't going to win. He knew he had a much better chance of winning governor again, which is what he's running for again, than he did for Senate. And he was going to go try again another day after his reputation got a little bit better. Maybe a little time had passed between him abusing his emergency powers during COVID and him running for Senate. So Chris Sununu announced that he wasn't going to run for Senate. And then he released this statement a couple days ago explaining why. And I just want to read you guys what Chris Sununu said, because I just want to take a victory lap for every single person that told me that I was a leftist for daring to question Chris Sununu. Because that happens a lot. If I say something that conservatives don't like, their instant response is, Karlyn, you're just a leftist and you're trying to trick us. Well, guess what? For every single Republican that told me that I was just but a leftist and that's the only reason I didn't like Chris Sununu, I'm taking a victory lap. Because Chris Sununu literally came out 2 days ago and said that the reason that he didn't want to run for Senate was because he didn't want to help the Republicans. He didn't say it that explicitly, but that's basically what he said. This headline in The Hill: Sununu says he skipped Senate bid to avoid being a roadblock for Biden for 2 years. Why wouldn't Chris Sununu want to be a roadblock for Joe Biden? Why is the great white hope of the GOP, Chris Sununu, saying he didn't want to be a roadblock for Biden? He's basically saying he didn't want to help the Republicans win, and that's why he didn't run for Senate. Nick H says Sununu played the Republicans because he's with the Dems. He did. Emphasize, thank you so much for the nice big super chat. Emphasize says, I appreciate your message and info. I just don't like you trying to leave the USA. Well, I mean, the good news on the secession bill is that it's not going to go anywhere this time. Listen, I view the secession bill in New Hampshire, and I am actually in favor of it, but we also need to be realistic. It ain't going to pass right now. And so the reason that I support this stuff is because I want to drive the conversation in that direction. And I think it's important that we have this conversation. But I'm also very realistic about this in that I do not believe that it is going to pass. So let's all just settle down. Okay, let's all just settle down. No one's leaving the USA right this second. Even though I do have my New Hampshire secession shirt on today. You guys can't really see it. But I do appreciate the super chat. Let's read what Chris Sununu said, and then we're going to see what Joe Biden said. Joe Biden now loves Chris Sununu. Chris Sununu's like Joe Biden's favorite Republican ever. New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu said in an interview he passed on running for Senate because he didn't want to simply be a roadblock for Biden for 2 years. I was pretty close, Sununu told the Washington Examiner, about weighing a Senate bid. I wasn't ready to make an announcement, but I was like, okay, that makes sense. I think I could be a voice nationally. Sununu, who Republicans were hoping to see run for the Senate in the Granite State, explained he decided to instead run for re-election for governor after hearing the party's plan for Senate for the next 2 years. They were all like, for the most part, content with the speed at which they weren't doing anything. It was very clear that we just have to hold the line for 2 years. Okay, so I'm just going to be a roadblock for 2 years. That's not what I want to do. It bothered me that they were okay with that. Now, I will say that I agree with Chris Sununu that I think the Republicans are absolutely feckless and don't do anything. And I would absolutely like to see a more proactive strategy than let's be controlled opposition. However, here's the thing. Maggie Hassan is absolutely going to win that Senate seat. That is Chris Sununu in New Hampshire. And I don't think I'm wrong about this. There is a Republican challenger for the Senate seat now, but I don't think I'm wrong about this. Chris Sununu in New Hampshire was the only person who could beat Maggie Hassan for that Senate seat. That it was going to be an extremely close race as it was. So by not running, Chris Sununu guaranteed that Senate seat from New Hampshire would be represented by a Democrat. So to be quite frank, I don't really care if he doesn't want to be controlled opposition. Now, I didn't want him running for Senate in the first place. I didn't want Republicans supporting him, but this is like the most boneheaded possible reason you could give for not running for Senate. To say, I don't want to help fend off Biden's agenda for 2 years, that it's just not worth my time for the next 2 years of what is a reminder 6-year term, because it's not like the Senate is just a 2-year term. Chris Sununu would have actually gotten elected to 6 years in that seat. And to say, well, I'm just too spoiled that I don't want to help the Republicans fend off Biden's agenda for 2 years, that is incredibly selfish. And if that doesn't tell you that he doesn't actually care about helping the Republicans, I just don't know what does. But except, actually, I can do you one better. This was how the Boston Globe covered it. Let's make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Biden, anyone see Biden's press conference yesterday? Because Chris Sununu came out and said, I didn't want to be a roadblock for Biden for 2 years, Chris Sununu is now like Joe Biden's favorite person. This is how the Boston Globe covered this. Biden invokes comments made by New Hampshire Governor Sununu in slamming Republicans for blocking his agenda. Chris Sununu is like giving a gift to Joe Biden and a gift to the Democratic Party because he was too much of a spoiled princess to block an agenda for 2 years? I'm sorry. What? I didn't want him in that seat to begin with, but this is the stupidest possible reason he could give for why he's not running. President Biden on Wednesday slammed Republican senators for blocking his legislative agenda by invoking comments made by New Hampshire Governor Sununu when he announced he would not run for Senate, in part because of what he described as the body's inability to pass legislation. Biden, speaking at a news conference to mark his first year as president, cited comments the Republican governor made in November 2021 when he announced he wouldn't run for Senate and wouldn't seek re-election. In response to a question from a reporter about whether he overpromised what he could achieve in his first year, Biden said he didn't overpromise and argued that his administration had made enormous progress. But Biden said he hasn't been able to get my Republican friends to get in the game of making things better in this country. In an attempt to illustrate his point, Biden quoted comments Chris Sununu made in a recent Washington Examiner interview as saying of senators, they were all, for the most part, content at the speed with which they weren't doing anything. It was very clear that we were just going to hold the line for 2 years. Okay, so I'm going to be a roadblock for 2 years. That's not what I wanted to do. Biden suggested Sununu's comments, in which he indicated senators told him they planned to block Democratic legislation until midterm election, highlights his belief that Republicans are only seeking to stall his agenda. I didn't anticipate there would be such a stalwart effort to make sure the most important thing was that President Biden didn't get anything done. So Chris Sununu is now Joe Biden's favorite person. Sununu is being highlighted as an example of a Republican senator, what a Republican senator should be by the Biden administration. But I'm a secret leftist because I told you guys for months that Sununu was a rhino. And I'm not talking to people in the chat right now because I know you guys listen to me. But it is so frustrating sometimes. It is so frustrating to be here, to have like a front row seat to a lot of this stuff, to be in touch with people who are really in the know, really paying attention. Listen, I don't follow this stuff as closely as a lot of people in New Hampshire do. There are a lot of there are wonks in New Hampshire. But I talk to them and I make sure I know what's going on as much as I possibly can. And every single person is saying, Sununu's not the guy. Sununu's not the guy. But I'm a leftist for pointing that out. And now look what happens when Republicans don't listen to me. Joe Biden praises their great white hope. I just think it's funny. I wanted to take a victory lap for that. Guys, you are watching Live at 5. This is a stream I do every single day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on this channel. On Sunday, we do effed up news of the week. We got some effed up news that's being collected in my locals as we speak. Sometimes we do interviews. On Tuesday of next week, I'm actually going to have Dennis Pratt on the channel, who is the organizer of Pork Fest, the Great Libertarian Festival. And he's going to be interviewing me about my first experience at Pork Fest last year. So I'm really excited about that. And as a special treat, right after our webinar today, if you guys head over to my locals, kb.locals.com, I'm going to read you the introduction to my book, Actively Unwoke. No one has heard this introduction yet. I'm really excited about it. I'm also really nervous about it because I've never read my own writing before to anyone. So we're going to be doing that on kb.locals.com literally right after the stream in about half an hour. And I'm looking forward to that. Patrice says, I'd love for you to go on You Are Here. I bet you'd have a great time with Elijah and Sydney. Elijah did actually ask me to, and it's just like, I haven't had the opportunity to go down to Texas, but I don't know. I mean, maybe if they still want me to, I'm absolutely open to it, and I can send him a message about that or something. But no, Elijah has actually asked me to. So maybe that is something that will happen. I love Elijah. I love Sydney. I think that they are both really cool people. Like I rag on content creators a lot. Elijah and Sydney are some of the good ones. All right, guys. Now, for the last segment for today, I thought we'd do something a little bit fun. I want to retake my political compass test. Now, I haven't done my political compass test in about a year. The last time I took the political compass test, I basically ended up right on the middle line, but like with more libertarian leanings. And someone actually saw a video that I posted of me taking the political compass right after I left the left a couple days ago, and they commented on my channel. They were like, Karlyn, you're not very consistent in your positions. Well, I was in a little bit of a political transition then. Like, it was crazy. But I did think it would be a nice time to kind of like update this test and to do it again and do it live on the internet so you guys know I'm telling the truth and I'm actually taking it so you can see what the answer is and we can see, am I really a leftist? Am I really a libertarian? Where do I fall? Yeah, exactly. John Morgan, watch Karlyn turn out to be a communist. Let's see. Let me take this test. Okay. If globalism is inevitable, if economic globalism is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Agree. I'd always support my country whether it is right or wrong. Disagree. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Disagree. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Disagree. Actually, we're going to go strongly disagree for that. Strongly disagree. Reagan says, if I come out as a conservative, I'm going to laugh. We'll see. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Agree. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Strongly disagree, mostly because I actually don't think that military action, even that doesn't defy international law, is justified in like most cases. I am very, very, very anti-war. Always have been. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Oh my God, strongly agree. Strongly agree on that. Next. The economy. People are ultimately divided more by class than nationality. Agree. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Well, I'm gonna definitely say agree to that right now. I'm definitely gonna I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna say yes. Yeah, I'm sticking with that. Yep. Okay. That's mostly because I think that people have agency, and I think that when someone is unemployed, that's an opportunity for them to start their own business or side hustle. And so I think that oftentimes when people are unemployed, they are perfectly capable of getting a job, and they just really haven't looked in the right places. I'm admittedly I'm a little bit harsher on that than a lot of people, just because I know what people are capable of, and I've coached so many people through getting a job that to me, it's like, if you can't get a job, I'm like, you just gotta try a different way. We'll get you there eventually. Okay. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. I don't believe that corporations can't be trusted to voluntarily do things. I think that if the market wants an organization or a corporation to do something, if it's advantageous for the corporation to do it, they will do it. So no, I'm going to disagree. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Strongly disagree. Who knows where that's from? From each according to his ability to each according to his need. No, we are not in favor of equity today. Sorry. The freer the market, the freer the people. Agree. Strongly agree. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now bottled, branded as a consumer product. Well, I mean, okay, I do think there is an excessive amount of consumerism, but the fact that drinking water is bottled shows that there is a market for bottled drinking water. So, no, I'm going to disagree. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Strongly disagree. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to our society. I do not agree that those people are simply manipulating money. And I think, generally speaking, when someone makes money, it's because they're providing a value or a service of some sort. So I'm going to go ahead and say disagree. If you are not providing value to someone in some way, you don't make money. Money is a value exchange. This is why I don't believe that grifting is a thing, because if you are giving me money for something, then I am giving you something of value. You guys give me super chats when you like what I'm doing or want to support what I'm doing because I'm giving you value in some way. If you didn't think I was giving you value, even frankly, if you hate me, even those hate watchers that are watching, and I know you're watching, like, even if you hate me, I'm still giving you value in some way. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Disagree. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. Agree. Although I don't think that there is anything wrong with championing social causes when it comes from an authentic place. But if you've read Woke Inc., and we read that in book club in my locals not too long ago, I mean, what Woke Inc. really exposed, it was a wonderful book. What it really exposed was the fact that organizations don't give a flip about social causes, they just do it for virtue points. So I don't think there's anything wrong with an organization championing different social causes. I think, particularly, I mean, let's look at a conservative case. Let's look at Hobby Lobby, right? The family that owns Hobby Lobby is incredibly religious. Because of their religious convictions, they didn't want to provide birth control well, not all birth control. They actually provided a lot of birth control. People who say that Hobby Lobby didn't provide birth control are liars. Hobby Lobby provided like 16 different types of birth control. They didn't provide 2 that went against their religious beliefs. So I think like there's nothing wrong with owners of companies having values and religious beliefs, or even like values around social justice or things like that, things that I might personally oppose. I don't think there's anything wrong with owners of companies having those values and using their work to support those values, but I don't think it's a requirement. If you don't want to do business with the company because you disagree with their values, then don't do business with the company. Or I mean, it's like really that simple. If you don't agree with their values, don't do business with the company. Or if it's that big of a thing for you. The rich are too highly taxed. Agree. But not because they're rich. Because taxation is theft, mother effers. No one should be highly taxed. No one should be highly taxed. To include the rich, the poor, and everyone in between. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. I mean, in an ideal world, I would like everyone to have the ability to have access to high standards of medical care. But like, if you have the resource, I mean, this is a reality of the world. If you work hard and you have resources, you are going to be able to have access to things that are that are of a higher value. So I'm gonna have to say agree. Although, in my ideal world, I would like everyone to have access to high quality healthcare. Now, I don't believe in universal healthcare because I think that's way too expensive. And I think that people make really irresponsible decisions that the rest of us shouldn't be required to pay for. To include myself in that, by the way, I need to go to the gym. I know I need to go to the gym. You guys shouldn't have to pay for my fat ass. Come on. So I don't think people should be responsible for paying for others, but like I do think that in an ideal world, everyone should have access to quality healthcare. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. I think in a genuinely free market, those predator multinationals wouldn't be able to create monopolies. So I'm going to go with disagree because I don't believe the restrictions are required. If it was a genuinely free market, I don't believe those monopolies would be able to exist. Thank you, Twin Tails. I appreciate that. I really just call myself fat because I want compliments. No, I do need to go to the gym, though. Dude, I need to go to the gym. I know it. I own it. Nothing wrong with that. I'm an old married lady. I'm an old middle-aged Did I skip a question? I don't think oh, did I? Oh, I did. You're right. Thank you, Reagan. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Disagree. Abortion, when a woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. Come at me, conservatives. All authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I believe that karma will always get people in the end. So I believe that karma will always have the retribution that whoever that person is has earned. I do not necessarily think that we should be seeking vengeance on things, though. I have a hard time with that. I think a lot of times we seek vengeance that is too great for the crime that's committed. So I'm going to go disagree, but I want to qualify that with you guys by saying that I ultimately think that people will get the retribution or the consequence that they deserve. I just don't always think it's necessarily our job to inflict that consequence. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Agree. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Strongly agree. Strongly agree. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Disagree. That's dumb. George Andre Veloso Nunez says, vengeance is bad for your soul, Justin. I agree. I think vengeance is bad. See, Alexandra didn't get a notification. I don't know why some people get notifications and some don't. But guys, please, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, maybe today is the day you subscribe. Double check if you think you're subscribed. You might not be. Turn on notifications. Maybe YouTube will send you one. And of course, make sure you mount that like button for me. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. I don't necessarily think that spanking children is always bad. But I'm not talking about like with an implement or anything. Like a whack on the butt, I don't necessarily think is the most harmful thing that's ever happened. It's like teaching the child not to touch the hot stove. You don't want the child to burn its hand by touching I would much rather a child get a whack on the ass than have their hand burned by touching a hot stove. And I say that as someone that's legitimately had second-degree burns on her hand from an effing hot stove. I would much rather have a swat on my ass than have second-degree burns, okay? Those burns hurt. That was the most painful experience of my life. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Yes, strongly agree. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. I disagree with that because I think the primary function of schooling should be to teach people how to think. But do I think an offshoot of that schooling should be that that they are able to find jobs and be productive in society? Yes. But I think the prime function of schooling should be to teach people how to think, how to read, how to write, how to do math, how to question things, how to be logical human beings. That should be the primary focus. But I do think that if schools were functional, people being able to find jobs would be an inherent outcome of that function. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Disagree. The most important thing for children is to learn to accept discipline. Disagree. I think the most important thing for children is to learn to love themselves and to not hate themselves too much by the time they're adults. There are no savage and civilized peoples, there are only different cultures. I agree with that because I think everyone has their own journey, and some things that I might consider to be savage or civilized, well, there's a reason those people are on that journey, and I shouldn't be judging them based on how they compare with how I've chosen to live my life. As long as they're off doing their thing. Like, here's the thing. As long as they're off doing their own thing and they're leaving other people alone and they're in their own community, then why should I really care about how they want to live their lives? Right? The only time I would care about a savage or like uncivilized organization, or not organization, like civilization, as you know the question is asking, the only time I would actually care about that is if that civilization was trying to impose their will on me to live in a way that I do not like. But if they're just like off on, you know, like an island somewhere or something, and they're doing their own thing and they're not bothering anyone, even like communists. Like, if someone wants to live in a communist society, fine, but don't force anyone else to live there with you. That's my general thought on it. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Strongly agree. Hang on. I'm going to cough. Hang on. Sorry, it went down the wrong pipe. I was trying to recover. All right. When you are troubled, it is better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I'm going to say agree because I think that and you guys know that I've gone through this recently where, like, I have been troubled, but, like, I think that when you have depressing things happen in your life or when there's stuff going on in the world that you don't like, the very best thing you can do is focus on yourself and what you're contributing and the value that you're giving the world, and just, like, focusing back on you primarily. That's not to say you can't help other people or support other people, but, I think that, keeping yourself busy, focusing on things that make you happy and that make you feel good is going to help. It's going to help the troubled stuff go away. The greatest challenge in life is not that we should not have challenges. The thing about life is, like, we want challenges. Challenge is what build our resiliency. Challenge is what pushes us to the next level. Sometimes we need to be depressed so that we can come out on the other side of it and be a new person. So I don't necessarily think being troubled is bad. I think that being troubled or having obstacles in life is an opportunity for you to make sure you're focusing on the things that you should be focusing on. If you are troubled, if you are having a tough time, it is fundamentally because you are putting your energy in the wrong direction. Now, that's not always as simple as snapping a finger and saying, I'm going to go over here now. But you do have to have some sense that if I feel bad, it's because I'm focusing on the wrong things. And if I focus on the right things, then I'm going to feel less sad. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated with their new country. Disagree. What's good for most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. What's good for most successful corporations is always, well, okay, so this depends on how we're defining what's good for most successful corporations. Because most corporations don't do the things that are good for them. Like, woke diversity training is not good for a corporation, right? It's not good. But I do think that if corporations were actually focusing on things that were good for them, I do ultimately think that would be good for us because that would be good for the market, making sure we have the things that we want and need. I just think we also need to acknowledge that most successful corporations are not always focused on the right things. Just because a corporation is successful doesn't mean they're actually focused on the right things. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Yes. I wouldn't have strongly disagreed with that a year ago. I absolutely strongly agree with that now. Guys, just as a reminder, I'm going to be going live in my locals community right after this stream today, and I'm going to be reading the introduction to my book. I bring that up just because I have set the stream in locals to start at 6:20. Looks like we're not going to quite start at 6:20, but I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to take like a 2-minute break, and then we're going to go live in my locals right after that. So I just want to like let people know for my locals, the stream is coming. It's just not. I'm not. I'm still working on this thing. Okay, we got 2 pages left, 3 pages left. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Agree. A significant advantage of a one party state is that it avoids all arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. No. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Well, after getting interviewed by the FBI for sending a tweet from the Capitol lawn, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say strongly disagree to that. The death penalty should be an option for most serious crimes. Strongly disagree. I do not favor the death penalty, mostly because I think that like one innocent person getting put to death by the state is too many. And I don't think there's any doubt that at least one innocent person in our history has been put to death by the state. And that's a tragedy. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree with that because I think that some people naturally are inclined to leadership positions and some people are naturally inclined to be told what to do. You're always going to have that. Anything else would be communism. Abstract art doesn't represent anything that shouldn't be considered art at all. Well, this question is weirdly worded. Abstract art doesn't represent anything and shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly disagree. I think some abstract art is extremely beautiful and thought provoking. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Disagree. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. Agree. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Strongly disagree. I think that everyone has their role to play in society, and no job, no profession, no role is any more or less important than any other. Everyone has a role to play, and we shouldn't be judging people or valuing people based on the role that they play, because they all contribute a value of some sort. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I am not opposed to people choosing to be homemakers, but I do not believe the primary responsibility of a mother is to be a homemaker. But if you want to do that, then fine. It's your choice. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably true. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. No. No, that's what the establishment wants you to think, dude. Come on. Astrology accurately explains many things. Agree. Fight me. It only explains many things when you actually understand astrology. You can be moral without being religious. Yes. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping genuinely disadvantaged people. Agree. Some people are naturally unlucky. Disagree. I think people that come across as unlucky have made themselves unlucky through their perspective and how they view the world. It is important that my child's school instill religious values. Oh, God, no. No, 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 no. Finally, a look at sex. Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. Strongly disagree. A same sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Strongly agree. Obviously, I have very strong opinions about sex. What goes on in a private bedroom between two consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I don't think that sex is anything to be ashamed of. I do not like the sexualization of children in schools. I do not like how sex is currently being taught in schools right now. I think it's too much. It's not, and for those of you who don't understand, like, it's not the same as when I was in school. It's not probably the same as when you were in school. They are literally showing children pornography. I don't think that's okay. They're forcing children to come out of the closet before they're ready as part of class assignments. I don't think that's okay. But I also don't think that sex is anything to be ashamed of, and I think that a lot of people view it with shame, and I think that that's a problem because I think that sexual repression creates a lot of problems. So, I'm going to say I disagree with this simply because I do think I'm not, again, I'm not in favor of this for children, but I also think there are a lot of really sexually repressed adults, and I think that's a shame. It's just unnecessary. And I think that's part of, like, the stigma that has been created. Like, there hasn't been balance with sex. Like, the reason that I think that, that the schools are so off the rails with sex today is because conservatives tried to eliminate sex from schools entirely. They tried to eliminate access to anything that we were teaching. Now, I do believe that sex education should be a thing. I do believe that children should learn the functions of things and how to put on a condom, because I don't like unwanted pregnancies, and I think we should teach teenagers how not to get pregnant because they're going to have sex anyway. Sorry. They are. Most teenagers are going to have sex anyway. So we should probably be teaching them how not to get pregnant so they don't need that abortion that you guys don't like so much. I just think it's gone way too far on both extremes, you know? All right, let's see where I stand. Oh my God, I'm nervous. I didn't think I'd be this nervous. Let's see. Okay, show me where I stand. I don't care, I want to see where I stand. Oh, God. I got so conservative. Holy shit. Holy shit, I got conservative. Last time I took this, I was like here. I was like right here last time. I was like literally right on the centrist line. And now I'm like a right-leaning libertarian. Holy shit. Oh, I feel dirty. Oh my God. I didn't know I was that far to the right. Oh. It's the natural backlash to 2 years of lockdowns, I think, is what just happened. Like it's like my natural backlash to every See, you guys think I hate conservatives, right? I don't. I have a much stronger aversion to the left than I do to the right. I just think conservatives are like lazy. God damn it. I became a right winger. This is what the woke left drove me to be a right winger, but thankfully I'm also a libertarian. So at least I'm way down on the libertarian spectrum. Wow. George said Mary didn't have sex and got pregnant. Well, I don't know about that. All right. So you guys heard it here first. I'm a right winger, apparently. Now, according to my political compass test has basically shifted right. You guys have no more calling me a leftist. I don't want to hear anyone else calling me a leftist. I've had the left beaten out of me. All right. Well, we have our answers. Nick H is thrilled apparently with this outcome. But guys, thank you for hanging out. I'm shocked at these. I really thought I was going to be about the same. That's not a lie. I'm shocked at these results. Now maybe I have to go to CPAC. I wasn't going to go to CPAC. No, I'm still not going to go to CPAC. That's not going to happen. Not that I don't enjoy CPAC. I actually really do enjoy CPAC. I'm just not going this year. All right, guys, that's all I have for my Live at 5 stream. Now, a couple of final announcements. In about 3 minutes, I'm going to be going live in my locals community. That's at kb.locals.com. And I'm going to read you guys the introduction to my book, Actively Unwoke. This is going to be the first time that I've ever read this to anyone. This is going to be the first time that I've had any public reaction to this at all. So we're going to see. Hopefully you guys like it. I'm going to be streaming this exclusively in my locals right after the stream today. If you would like to join, head over to kb.locals.com. And if you want to support the work I'm doing, you can join as a supporter so you can chat in and get access to all the features in locals. You can do that at kb.locals.com/support for $5 a month. You can do it for $50 a year, or you can make a one-time gift. Any one is cool. You get access to all of our locals community Zoom calls. We did a 4-hour community Zoom call the other day. Yesterday. We did a 4-hour community Zoom call yesterday. This is the type of stuff I do with my locals members because I love them so much. They're the best. As a reminder, if you have yet to order my book, you can head over to activelyunwoke.com. Look at this beautiful website that I made. I'm so proud of this website. It's so pretty. It turned out so good. But you guys can pre-order it on there. You can pre-order it on Amazon. You can pre-order on non-Amazon options, whatever is clever. There is a hardcover pre-order now. There is going to be a Kindle version. There's going to be an audio version. Don't worry. It's coming at some point. I'll let you know when. But if you want the hardcover, you can pre-order that now. And I hope you guys plan on joining me for happy hour tomorrow. Happy hour is going to be on my second channel, Actively Unwoke. We are going to be watching a University of Denver lecture about critical whiteness studies. So if you've ever wondered what critical whiteness studies is, we are going to be watching a literal university lecture that will teach you what critical whiteness studies is. We're doing that at 5 p.m. tomorrow on Actively Unwoke. I hope to see you there. And I will be back live on this channel on Sunday, because remember, I take Saturdays off. But I will be coming back on Sunday at 5 p.m. for Effed Up News of the Week, which is my fun little weekly wrap-up show with some of the more crazier news. And hope I'll see you guys then. Make sure you mount that like button on the way out the door. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That's all I've got for right now. I will see you guys in my locals community in a few minutes to read the introduction to Actively Unwoke.